All right, crew, we have to talk about closing and taking payments for your clients because a lot of you guys are not doing this in the appropriate way. And I want to make sure that you're closing deals fast and making sure that your sales cycles aren't getting overextended. So let's hop right in today. We have our Miro board open here, and you guys can have access to this. This is the Agency Therapy Stream board. So all the trainings all located inside of here. We'll drop the link inside of the description for you guys. So this is the typical agency deal, and this is how it normally goes. If like the deal is won, and then all of a sudden the client says, "Hey, this looks great. How do we get started?" And your response typically is, "Awesome. I'll send over the contract and the invoice, and we can schedule the kickoff call." The client says, "Great. Send it over. I'll review it. No problem. I'll send it over immediately after this call. Look forward to getting started." And all of a sudden, it's like we didn't even close the deal, right? And that's the most important part. Is like when they're ready to go, we need to be able to send them the contract. We need to be able to get them to pay the invoice. And the call ends and the contract is sent, and all of a sudden we hear nothing, right? And we sit there like Harold here, and sometimes the deal closes, but it's later down the road, or maybe the sales cycle extends unnecessarily. Maybe it takes them 2 to 3 weeks to get that signed, or maybe they don't even sign at all. And the problem here is that we're delaying the close when they said that they were ready to move forward, right? So if they're ready to move forward, we need to actually be prepared to move them forward. And then you can't answer questions about the contract in a live setting. So if you send the contract to their email, then you're not able to come back around and be able to say like, yeah, like that's why this is in the contract. People always have questions about, the terms of service, or, some term about utilizing their likeness, right? It's like all the nuances within the contract, they go over it, and then all of a sudden they have questions. And once again, this is delaying the close, and the sale gets pushed back even further, okay? And then on the side here, this delay is enough time for them to change their mind as well, right? That romance dies. And that's one of the hardest parts about not being ready to close people on the phone and actually get a deal signed, payment terms locked in, is that the romance period dies, that excitement, the gap that you built during the sales process where you're talking about their challenges and talking about where they're trying to go and their goals. That romance, that peak emotional height that got them across the line in the first place, that dies off after a period of time. And sometimes that delay is enough for them not to close. And so you needlessly extend your sales cycle, and it's making you guys grow slower. So this is what I want to do today. I want to show you how to put some systems in place in order to close these deals a little faster. So let's go up here to the top, how you should be closing. All right. So the client says, "Hey, this looks great. How do we get started?" Great. Hey, do you have an extra 5 minutes right now? We can knock out the initial onboarding. It'll be real quick. Okay. You get the buy-in there. They say, "Yep, no problem." And then keynote here, if you're sending the contract and collecting the first month's payment and inviting them to a Slack, that's typically one of the first steps. And I'll talk about that here in a second. But this shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. If your initial onboarding of like getting the payment, getting the contract, and then trading something with them is taking longer than 5 minutes, it's too long. You have to minimize it, because you have to do this at the end of a sales call or at the end of your closing call, second call, however your sales process is currently set up. So if it's taking longer than 5 minutes, you need to shorten that, right? Now, I will say sometimes it takes a little bit longer, maybe like 7-8 minutes, but we need to be able to say, "Hey, do you have an extra 5 minutes?" And a lot of times they'll give us roughly 10 minutes. So it really should be under 10 minutes, but try to practice this. Like this is something that our sales team has to practice, is how do we get someone across the line within 5 minutes? So they say, "Hey, yep, this is something that we want to do. Awesome. This is how we get started," right? And then 5 minutes, they're paid up and the contract is signed. Okay. So awesome. So just sent over the agreement. We'll get that signed today. Take care of first month's payment. And as you're taking care of that, I'm going to send you a Slack invite so our team can start your onboarding today. Okay, so a couple things happening here, especially on the psychology side. They are getting an agreement signed. They are paying, and so they're doing things for us, right? So the transaction at this point is only one-sided, where they are giving things that we want. Okay, now we have to give them something back in return that they want, right? Which is going to be this initial communication. Now you guys can do this in a couple different ways. It doesn't have to be a Slack invite. Maybe it's like the onboarding form or the audit form that they need to fill out in order to start the process. But essentially we need to trade something there. There needs to be a transaction. Just like as if you were to go through the McDonald's drive-through, you're going to have your order at the at the little board, right? They take your order, you go to the first window, you pay, and then at the second window, they give you your food, right? That's a transaction. If you paid at the first window and then you never got your food, that would be a shitty transaction. No one would ever want to do that. And so this is the same transaction we need to have with our clients is they pay us, they get the agreement signed, we trade something for them, right? Otherwise, you're going to get some buyer's remorse at the end of the call where they get off the call and they say, they move up to that second window and like, what did I just order? Like, I didn't even get anything, right? So we want to have a transaction where they are receiving some sort of value on the back end of them paying and signing the agreement. Okay. Now, we typically find that this will work with about 60% of the people that we sign. The other 40%, they'll want to actually review the contract. That does happen from time to time. Some people immediately have that trust. You have enough rapport built with them. They're like, yep, ready to go. Let's hit it. Okay. But for that 60%, right? Great. Just signed it. Awesome. I sent you over the first onboarding steps. Okay. Okay, once again, keynote here, we want to trade something. Okay, so whatever that is. First onboarding steps, maybe it's a Slack channel that you guys set up and you guys, invite the team, send a couple first messages. Okay, something along those lines. Great. So 60% of the time, that's probably what's going to happen. Now, the other 40% of the time can typically look like this, where it's like, hey, I need my legal team to review this, or I need to review this personally and actually read through the contract, which is totally fine. It's actually pretty normal, and honestly, it's probably recommended that they look at the legal terms of what they're getting into. And so for us, like, we don't want to give a ton of pushback on this, but we do try to, this is an objection, and we do try to handle it so we can close right there. And so for us, how we typically handle this is, of course, no problem. What does that process normally entail of your legal team reviewing this? And what questions do you think that they might have that I can answer for you now on this call? Like, what do they typically review when they review contracts? So hopefully we can either have them get to a point where there's no need for a legal team to review it, or we know exactly what the legal team is going to review, so we can come prepared in order to do that. Okay. Now, the second thing here on the client side is I need to review this, right? Of course, no problem. What does that process normally entail? Is there anything specific that you typically look at when reviewing contracts? Because here's the thing, guys, like the contract is a contract, and a lot of you guys aren't going to shift or change the contract based off of the client's wants or needs. I mean, like, and here's the thing is like, you should have covered deliverables, right, on the sales call. You should have covered the terms, the communication standards, anything that's going to be in the contract that should have been reviewed already. So, outside of the terms, outside of that, is there anything else that you'd want to review? Because here's the thing is like, I can break down a contract for most people in less than 2 minutes of like, here's step by step. Here's section 1. This is what it means. Here's section 2. This is what it means. So it's like what questions they have specifically on that. And for them, they just might want to review it and might want to read it. Okay, great. When can you guys get this signed for me today? Or when can you review this? Okay. And if they are truly going to go and take time and review this, we need to tie them down to a timeline in order for that review to happen. Awesome. Do you guys have some time today to go over and review this? Awesome. Do you guys think you can do this by 4 p.m. today? Yep, absolutely. Cool. I'll reach out at 4 p.m. today. I'll shoot you guys a little text message. We'll get that signed. I'll run your first payment. And then from there, we'll go ahead and send over the Slack invitation. Now, this is that 40%. A lot of times we do close these deals and people will look at the contract typically, but they're like, yeah, all looks good, pretty standard stuff in here. And then they kind of roll. Now, if you guys need some help with your contract, I've included 2 templates down below here. And the first template is going to be what we call our master service agreement. And you can actually download this template right over here. It's master service agreement template. So you guys can get access to that. The second thing that we do is a credit card authorization form. Now, the credit card authorization form just gives you that permission to actually run their payment on your end when they sign this. Because say you get into the second scenario of this like 40%, where someone's like, hey, I need to review this, or I need to have my legal team review this. Great. So as soon as they get it reviewed and as soon as they get it signed, you are able to run their payment on your end, right? Without having to get back on the phone with them and take down their credit card information and actually run the payment, right? All you have to do is like, hey, you're just going to sign this. Once you sign this, we're going to be able to run the payment. And then from there, you guys are going to be able to start your onboarding process. So you have a credit card authorization form here as well. Now, one quick caveat before you guys just start jumping into a contract and doing this for yourself. Note that this is not any legal advice, and you should have a lawyer review all of your contracts, all of your legal work before using it with any of your clients. So if you use this, use it at, obviously your own discretion. Make sure you have a legal team review it. And that's pretty much all I got for you guys today. That's closing, taking payments for your agency services. I mean, this will get your closing cycles down so much further. And if you guys are wanting to close clients a little bit faster and actually get them across the line without getting some of the BS excuses or having delays in that sales cycle, this is the way right here. This is how we do it. Okay. It's really effective. It's really efficient. A lot of our agencies use it. We use it personally. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one.